Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you have not seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. I just did a video that was about an hour and a half long, and I really enjoyed it. It included everything. I did a little bit of an energy update, some light language, some toning. I talked a little bit about the writing that I've been doing. And at the very end of the video, if this is something that you're interested in, I did a short energy healing session, so to speak, which is, of course, just a combination of sound and movement and moving the plasma around. And it just is an activation, opening, expansiveness that I do quite frequently on these videos. I don't know that I've done that in a while, and I do it in sessions. So I want to be able to share in this sharing on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, wherever I'm at, a little bit of the process of how I do what I do, because we're all teachers in our own right. And when I do sessions with other light workers, I am taught certain things about them. I learn certain things about them, and that helps lead me into other directions, other dimensions, expansiveness, awareness. And then I can essentially follow those synchronicities and follow that chain into more expansion. And this leads back to what I was speaking about leading and following. We are flowers, flowers, not followers, not leaders. We're both. And so we're constantly going back and forth into this space. Oftentimes I'm amazed at the sessions that I'm doing because I'm connecting with these other light workers that are psychics, mediums, channelers, amazing healers, or people that are just starting to learn what their gifts and abilities are. And I'm tapping into their field going, wow, do you have any idea the consciousness that you're tapping into? And it gives me the opportunity to tap into that as well. But in this particular video, my intention is to give back to that and just to kind of share my own experiences. I'm going to share a little bit about my activated writing. First, I'm going to start talking about, I'm going to do a video on light language. I have done some videos about how to speak light language or how it happened for me. But my heart right now is telling me to talk about the writing. So I'm going to do that. So my dear friend Kat had asked me about a week ago, how are you getting these messages? What do they look like? What does it sound like? How do you know you're receiving these messages? And she did it to ask in order to receive confirmation that she too was receiving messages from her team. And she's always known that. She's very in touch with all of that. But they were different kinds of messages, I think. And then she recognized, oh, okay, this is what I've been tapping into in my own way. And so that's something I like to teach others and share with, because our experiences are piggybacking off of each other. We're constantly learning from one another. Doris, who I'd had a session with, who's a physical medium several weeks ago, had asked me, how did this light language start happening for you? I'd love to talk about that. People would probably benefit from that. And I've had many clients, or we'll say brothers and sisters, ask me to talk about that. And I have sprinkled that in and out of these videos. Also, I've had requests to do longer meditations, to do so eventually I'll get to that space where I have this offered on my website and I'm offering workshops and things like that. But I'm just not there yet. It's something that I am in the process of putting together. And as many of you have watched these videos before understand, it's time consuming to do these videos, and to, not in a bad way, it just is. It is what it is. It takes time to upload them, to record them, to move things around on the phone, to type out the channeled writings, to be able to be in that space all of the time in order to offer this. So I could go on and on, but it's a process. So eventually I'll get to that. So I hear you, and I'm grateful for what you've been sharing with me. So thank you. And in that, I'm going to share just a little bit about the light language, a little bit about the process of me receiving this information, and then I'll share the writing as well. So in a nutshell, light language is energy, it's communication, it is information coming through in our physical form that we are using our senses in order to interpret and express. So this can come through in the form of language, sound, dance, movement, whatever that movement might be. It can come in the form of symbols, which are then shared in all of those forms, artwork, shapes, geometries. It's basically language. What is language? It's communication. It's a communication that holds information. So within the spoken word or any of the things I just listed, there is a communication and information that is layered within it. It is held within it, that once we express it, it's like it breaks the seal and allows it to come out. And then we, through our senses, so I speak, and you hear not just the words, but the tones, but the energy that I'm offering in which that information is flowing out. And the body, the mind, the heart, whatever, responds to that frequency of what it is that I'm offering. Sometimes this can cause a trigger. It can cause fear, happiness, excitement, peace. For everybody, it's something different. If I were to look up and say, look up, it's beautiful, some people might look up, some people might look up, some people might look up in a different direction. Others might think I was talking about the sky. They might see the clouds, they might see the sun or the moon or whatever time of day it was. If it was a gray sky, they might say, I don't think that's beautiful, that's really ugly. That word beautiful is subjective, depending on our filters of what we associate beautiful with. If we use the word love, it can be taken into infinite numbers of distortions, perceptions, feelings, etc. So there's different variations of love. How is it said? In what context is it said? So on and so forth. Someone may just have gone through a breakup, and when they hear the word love, they cringe because they feel like love has let them down. Or the opposite. They might just have gotten, who knows? So it can be expressed about a child or an animal or a place. And it's all different. It's one word within it that's compacted with tons of information, frequencies, and certain, and even the letters within that hold a certain frequency when written and spoken. For vowels, for example, A, E, I, O, U all hold a different frequency. For those of us who have done yoga, oftentimes, or pranayama, it's, I haven't done this one in a while, but is it lam, vam, ram, ham, yam, om? So it's lam, and then va. So we're moving up, right, the chakras, and L holds a certain frequency, and V holds a certain frequency, and O holds a frequency. And then if we did those in different, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? Went up the scale, those hold different frequencies. And then when we combine those in a particular order, they then combine the frequencies to be moved like Scrabble. And I could go on and on. This is how I write with my activated writings. It's tapping into dimensional layers. This is language. So from a very linear perspective, light language can be lost languages of ancient civilizations that hold a higher frequency than English does. Even English has Latin roots, and the original Hebrew, Sanskrit. The difference is the Hebrew and the Sanskrit hasn't been watered down and pulled apart quite as much as the English language has, right? So technically it would be more compact. It would hold more information in it from my perspective. And this is all from my perspective, of course, my own ways that I've kind of come across this journey, light language. So what happens is it holds these packets of information that then activates a certain memory. So some of them are coming from lost civilizations that were from the land before time on Earth. Some of them are coming from other versions of Earth that we have maybe played on before. Some of them are coming from other planets, such as Venus or other. So let me just go back to the beginning, first of all. So it could just be Native American, for example, or Hawaiian. But those are forms of light languages. Every language holds light because light is information from my perspective. It's vibration, frequency, and light. So everything can be a light language when used with the tone that's behind it. Anything that we say, essentially, it comes from our intention. If we say, oh yeah, I just love that. Sarcasm, not love. But we used it in that sentence. So technically, that energy is still there, but we've twisted it into something else. So that's why sometimes you'll hear certain languages and it can be a little grating. It's like, oh, the energy behind it isn't where I'm necessarily at. Like nails on a chalkboard, right? So some of these are in our DNA, they're in our heritage, we've spoken them, or our ancestors have spoken them, and it's been passed down from generation to generation, and it's in us. It's the context and the energy behind it that makes the language beautiful. Although sometimes the words, they make us cry, they make us feel emotional because they remind us of something else, something beyond this physical reality and lifetime, if that makes sense. Past lives. It can also be future versions of us on this earth. So that's a whole other can of worms, right? Going down the wormhole, rabbit hole, both. So there's that. What else? There is also the light language. So we could call that linguistic from, let's say, a particular Native American. I'm not even gonna say Native American. I'm Native American because that's what I was taught, but we'll say just natives to the earth. We can say maybe it's long lost, ancient, Aboriginal language that even the Aborigines know their language because it's taught from generation to generation from generation. So whatever's in their DNA, they're still speaking it for the most part. And the same thing with natives, right? But there may be something even deeper than that that comes from their ancestry that has been lost in time. And we're remembering that essentially from one perspective. When we remember something, it's a memory stored, and I'm not going to get into all this because there's like so many different layers. We could talk about what memory really is, but we're accessing a deeper part of our consciousness that is remembering something that we are connected to strongly, we could say, energetically, DNA, whatever it might be. There's also light language that, of course, comes from other planetary systems, other frequent, like Lemurian or Atlantean. But Lemurian is basically a combination of many different languages because Lemuria was held within it different beings from different places. It's got Pleiadian, there's all kinds of, it's not just Pleiadian. So Pleiadians and Syrians and maybe even, dare I say, Orion. So the reason I don't ever go in and say all of this is from Orion, this is Syrian, this is Lyran, because it's a combination of all of those quite frequently, although it may hold a higher harmonic of, let's say, Lyran than perhaps this other one that holds a higher harmonic of Cassiopean. I'm just using these as examples. But many of us have been many of those things. So we're filtering it through and we're remembering and we're combining it. So Aborigine may hold with it certain components of Pleiadian, right? So to speak, so on and so forth. So these are just one different little things to think about light language, because it's not some mystical thing. It isn't, but it feels like that when you first hear it sometimes. And I love listening to it. It's just so soothing most of the time. Okay. So this holds a harmonic, and it's literally connected within our mapping system, within our consciousness. And then when we express it, it's like breaking a seal. It's almost like we're holding it and then we let it out, and it literally moves around us through our eardrums and vibrates. And this is the way sound and language and communication and sharing of information really is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be limiting. It's supposed to be expansive. So that's, from my perspective, what it is. And I could go on and on about it because there's more to it than just that. So I started speaking light language. I'll just share a little of my story. I guess maybe I'll share the writing on my other video. I started speaking it not fluently like I do now. And even the other day, I started speaking a new one. It just kind of came out of the blue, and I used to sit down and go, okay, where is this from? And my guides never wanted me to, my higher self was like, it's from you. Don't worry about it. Because what happens is when you first start speaking these languages, we want to know where it's from. And some of us, it's important to know that for whatever reason. Maybe we need to know that because, and sometimes if I have a session with someone, I will know that this is Andromedan or Arcturian energy, right? I just know, I feel it, or I hear it, or I see it. But my point is that might not necessarily be the best thing, because if we get this information coming in and we go, oh, it's from Sirius. Oh, is that good or bad? Sirius A or Sirius B? Oh no, I'm from Orion. Oh no, just because that's like saying everybody from the United States is bad or good. That's limiting, it's linear. So from my perspective, the way that I have been shown is get out of that linearity and judgment about the languages, because anything can be distorted. It's about the intention behind it, and anything can change. Therefore, some of these components of language that were maybe misused, we're flipping and reversing those. That's a whole other video. So I started hearing it. I actually was speaking it. It was in the back of my mind, almost like a record player when I was doing my healing work. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? For me, the language was coming through in hand movements and gestures. I didn't realize that though, because I was doing the Reiki symbols as a Reiki healer, but then all of a sudden, all this other stuff would start to come through, and I'd be doing this very fluid work, pulling these long strings out of people. And then I would start having these words playing in the back of my mind, or back of my mind. Literally, I could hear it. So I'm sharing it in this way because really that's clairaudience. That's hearing the words. It's moving with the plasma. I was feeling it as I was doing it. And then I was seeing it sometimes too. I would see it. And I'm not just talking about the language. When I'm healing, I would see black sludge, or I would see spiders, or whatever it was, entities, all this stuff. So all of this, I don't really know which one came first. I think the feeling probably. So with the light language, we start to respond because the language is done through our senses. We're doing it through movement. We're doing it through sound. We're doing it through harmonics, dance, artwork, color, whatever it might be. And then we're experiencing it through our senses as well. So we can interpret it based on how we're feeling and how the body responds from one way. So I was doing this work and my hands just started moving of their own accord. I was hearing the language. It wasn't though, and I would be walking, taking a walk, and my hands would just start moving in these mudras. This was after I became a yoga teacher in 2011, by the way, that this kind of started happening. Also, simultaneously, well, maybe a few years later, I started to hear people speaking light language on YouTube. So I was listening to, there's so many, I'm not going to name too many names. I can share that if you guys are interested and find their links. But I started hearing different people do it. I saw different people doing the hand movements. Jamie, obviously Romeo. I had reached out to him because he's like another star brother. Who else? There's so many people that do it. Jamie, I can't remember her last name. I'll find it and I will share it hopefully on the link if I remember to do that. So she was sharing all of this beautiful energy and doing it with the hands as well. And I was like, I do this. I'm doing this. But then of course the linear mind kicked in and I was like, what is this from? Is this Pleiadian? Is this? And so I started to realize I'm Arcturian. Oh, I'm Andromedan. Oh yeah, I'm Lyran too. Oh yeah, that's definitely from Sirius. I'm from there. So for me, that was me. I was all of those things. And I've had quite a few readings that have from others who have said, yeah, these are where you're from. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I was activated by all of it. I was just in love with it. So then I started to feel like I could speak it. Now I didn't just start speaking it. I would be driving in different areas, or I would be walking at the beach, or I would be walking in the forest. And all of a sudden I would just start doing these weird movements, by the way, opening portals and doing grid work. And I just let it flow. At first I was nervous because I wasn't out of that place of fear yet. And I'm sharing that because I know some of you are probably in that process right now. Then weird noises started coming out. I would start coughing. I would start pulling cords out of my mouth. I would start moving my head and moving my body. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you'll see me do this. Sometimes I do this, or I would just go move in and out because it helped me to find that it was like it wanted to move through me, so to speak. I don't know if that's clear anymore, but it doesn't matter. So once I let go of the fear and I was doing the inner work to clear some of the things that were coming up, I was clearing trauma. I was clearing past life stuff. I was moving this through my body. All the healing work that I had done on people that I'd taken on as my own, clearing that. And these sounds would come out and they were primordial sounding, like just screaming or coughing or whoa, 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 whoa. And I just did it over and over and over again. And it would just do it. Sometimes I'd have to hold back because I'd be having a conversation with somebody and all of a sudden I would be activated and I would just start wanting to make these weird noises. Then one day, boom, I was speaking light language and all of these languages came out, lots of like all of these weird energies started coming through and I just let it rip. Once I just let it rip and all of these languages came through, I began to find a kind of stabilizing language, which is the well, a couple of them. Very native, very well, I mean, we could say Lumerian, but that brings in so many different frequencies. Lyran, right? And the ur ishtak ar it ir ak ur it ir. Okay. So as these energies came through, those were the ones that I found the easiest. It's more difficult for me to get into some of it sounds Asian, some of it sounds, and so I don't always share all of them on these videos. I do find that some of the languages are associated with certain messages. So some of the technical messages that I get they're more quantum computing type with technology, are more of a serious energy frequency, so to speak, as in SIRIUS, right? So or it has more of an Asian whole Polynesian kind of flair. I mean, this is how it kind of works. I've started to differentiate between, some of them are very fatherly and some of them are very motherly. I call it grandmother and grandfather, you know. Some are very soft and some are very commanding, because the energy that's coming through is balancing out. Maybe I'm in this really airy fairy place, and the energies that come through are like, you know, like, hey, let's get grounded, let's anchor these frequencies. And other times it's, but they are a mixture of all of those particular systems. We may have other people interpret our language and say, no, this is what you're speaking. That's fine. From their perspective, that will be true. That's what they understand. That doesn't necessarily mean that's all encompassing of what we're speaking, just so you know. Also, some of it we are creating, by the way. So I'm being guided to share that. You may be pulling through healing frequencies and codes from your lifetime in the Pleiades, but at the same time, you also had other healing frequencies and codes from this Cassiopean energy that's coming through, that's being offered as you being the vessel for that energy. And when you reach that particular, I'm not going to, or Lyran or whatever it might be, Arcturian, which is a very high frequency, it allows you to kind of tap into the collective, the quantum field in which all of those energies are available. So that's my story about the light language, how it started to happen. I started recording what I was speaking. I was guided by my team. When I say my team, it is literally angelics, ancestors, which are angelics, as well as those that have passed. They are connected to multiple planetary systems. They are galactic. They are multidimensional. They are future and past versions of me. They are my guides that have chosen to connect with me on this level. We all have an entourage. It isn't just one spirit guide. That might be who we are tapping into the most. And sometimes that one spirit guide can be a collective of many different, just like the language can be a compressed, like a zip drive, right? A zip drive, that's what I'm going to call it. So we all have this, and sometimes we can tap into different elements depending on what it is we're being guided to tap into. So another question that comes up about light language is, well, what if, how do I know if it's good or bad? I really want to hone in on the fact that if you're in your heart, no matter, meaning you've done the work and you're in a place of gratitude and you're not in a place of fear, that energy that comes through will just be that living light code. And it's not bad if that's where you're at. If you're in a place of fear and you've been plugging into this matrix of negativity, and you feel like you're under that, in that space, and you open yourself up to just, so another question is light language channeling? Okay, so I know somebody's going to ask that. It can be. So some people are channelers and they channel, we're all channels, okay? We're all frequency beams, frequency adapters, right? But from my perspective, my intention is not to channel an outside source. And let's kind of just get away from the fact that we're all one and we're all connected to everything and everything is quantum and everything's a fractal. Yes. However, I don't choose to channel an entity who is not fully sovereign, who is not fully in 100% unity consciousness, union and communion, and in the place of the highest levels of love light, fully connected to source, the one source, right? Because there are beings that they are disconnected, or they think they're disconnected. They think they're a god or an ascended master or an angelic that is not necessarily needing God. They are God. And I know that's a very linear, that's kind of even hard to break down a little bit because we're all connected to source. We just forget that we're connected to source. And if we forget that we're connected to source, that's when those, I'm hearing inversions happen, or that that energy that comes in that says, no, I am the most important, yes, but is that coming from ego? So that means that entity might be polarized. They might have really good information, but at what cost? Because it is an exchange. So from my perspective, I don't need that person, being, place, or thing. I don't need to be the middle person for them. If they have the information, so do I. So I'm choosing to connect to my version of me that's connected to all of that information that they're offering in love and light. And if it's not do no harm, and then I don't want it. It's not for me. But that comes with discernment. So everybody's different when they get this information. So I'm not going to go into all of that per se. We'll stick with the light language aspect. It's a language. You can take any language and make it beautiful or ugly based on your energy behind it and the energy that the being is offering. So I'm not getting into channeling and all that. For example, we'll say reptilian. Does that mean that if somebody is speaking in a reptilian frequency, or mantis, mantoid, an insect, does that mean it's negative? No, not necessarily. If they're telling you something and you're understanding it, does that make you bad because you understand what they're saying? No, it's called communication. So we could take that and speak it. It doesn't mean that we're speaking something negative unless we're saying things that are negative, right? It's all about perspective. It's all about, so that's important to recognize as well. So if we're not, there are people that open themselves up to this and then aren't in a place of balance and harmony. You got to get grounded so you feel comfortable doing this work. And I've had moments of discomfort too, where mostly because of other people, not, I had other people that made me feel uncomfortable about what I was sharing. It wasn't me that felt uncomfortable about it necessarily. Although if those other people trigger you to question what it is that you're saying, then you may find yourself having to take a step back and go, okay, where am I still feeling out of alignment? Where am I still feeling fear? Is it around the language, or is it around what other people think of me? Is it around the beings that I'm connecting with? Maybe that's something to recognize, so that you can get into a place of non-judgment and discernment, sovereignty, making sure that we're stating our sovereignty before we begin. And it is also kind of setting that space of unity consciousness, benevolence for all, feeling that way. And if you're not feeling that balance that day, then maybe just stay away from it. Most of the time though, that's not what it is. It's just you remembering. And that's what I just gave an example of is like separation, right? Channeling. When it just flows, it's natural. And if you were a reptilian in one lifetime, oh wow, awesome. You've got another language and energy that you've learned from. If you were a mantoid, mantis being, all these different, awesome. That is so cool, right? Maybe you were a dragon in a past life, future version, other place in the galaxy beyond. I love it. Just, again, it's integration. It's integrating these energies and allowing who you have been, will be, to come into this space, in this body, to be expressed in the highest levels of love, light, and non-judgment, and all of that. So sometimes it is a process of getting through all those things. Our human thoughts and belief structure. Okay, so I do write it. Symbols and whatnot. Somebody that really likes to draw. So I don't do it very frequently though. I mean, I have done it. It looks like scribbles, but then I look at it and I'm like, oh, this isn't scribbles. This is actually my own handwriting in light language. If you feel like you're scribbling, just do it anyways. Eventually you'll start to feel the patterns kind of unfold. If your hands start moving of their own accord, great. Follow it through and play with it. What else? I think I'm going to end on that note. I'll do the writing in another video. So movement, yoga, Tai Chi, breath work, singing. I never felt that I was ever in a million years going to be singing or saying what I'm saying on YouTube and everywhere else. It's hilarious to me. When I first started doing this, right, I couldn't believe I was doing it, and neither could quite a few people. But now it's always been who I am. And I think this is so relevant now because more and more people have been hiding and being, I had a lot of people there's a lot of people that still don't know this is what I do. That's okay too. I don't need everybody to know. If somebody is meant to find out, they'll find out. And if they don't have room in their hearts for who I am or this other aspect of me, then that's their choice. And it's not that I don't care. I don't hold a charge around that anymore. Let me rephrase that. Doesn't mean I don't hold a charge ever. Sometimes I have that little bit where I'm like, really? I've been doing this how long? And you still think it's not real? But that's just the human me. And then I take a step back and go, it doesn't matter. That's their journey. That's their choice. They don't have to be a part of my journey in this way. We can still interact with each other. So I want to end on that note too. That sometimes when it starts coming through, sometimes the light language wants to come through before the English because it's so innate. Then I realized that language that was going on in the back of my mind was really, I was interpreting in English what the language is, because that's my true language. That is the true communication that I'm having with spirit. And English is like, a variation, if that makes sense. So some of the words cannot be interpreted, is what I'm trying to say, in the English language. They just can't. We don't have enough combinations of letters yet to share exactly what that word means. And that's why sometimes when people go, well, what does that word mean? Sorry, my crown is like, it's one of those days. Yeah, so it's okay. Don't get caught up in the interpretations. Just feel it. If the interpretations start to come through, great. Question is I've had is, well, how do you know? Like, how do I interpret it? You'll just know. It'll feel a certain way. Okay, I'm being guided to talk about this. So pictures will come through sometimes. You might say some words and then you might just see an ocean. You might say some words and so I'll give an example. I'm being guided to do that. I might say the same sentence and that's an entry into another sentence. It's the same sentence I say all the time, but it's a completely different meaning than the previous time I said it. So that's something else to keep in mind. Tula ak enahat ila au ulehenna ak ilaha ulehenna et ilaha la ku at inna ilaha utene le et inaha le et ilaha una liliana ki alehedo ono oku le et ilaha enani alaha ulia nahak e Lila ulehen alahe o alaan ak en lia uhat ak elahaan ek en a. Te awa hate na ki awa hate awa wahena te tiana ti unua te ki a ian ak ena di na unu ki nean etena. And many of our languages are coming through now, for we hold a certain key and frequency that was incompatible with the certain keys and frequencies that were available before. So as I'm saying this, I'm not hearing the words, they're just coming through, but I'm also seeing pictures. So I'm seeing like there was a key and there was a lock, but you couldn't, the lock was down here and the key was up here. So the lock had to move up in order for the key to fit. And this is all an interpretation, for the words that we have just conveyed hold a space. They hold a timing mechanism within them. They hold a beyond time in the noun moment. And as you pull through these certain codes and frequencies, it allows us to activate a deeper potential within the creative aspect of the whole. It allows all of us to come together in divine union and remembership as we contribute with this wave, with this frequency, through one another, as one another, combining our frequencies in a combined effort, in an effortless way. So that's all play on words too. So when I share this play on words, it's showing me that my English interpretation of what I just said also has 5 different layers. So when I say effortless, because that was one of the words that they were sharing, this is an effort. We're making an effort at something that's really effortless. It's natural, it's innate. And I'm seeing a fort. Again, reference back to the lock and key. And I'm seeing it's effortless. Like it's creating a safe place for us to play. That's the fort, the fortress. I mean, I could go on and on. I saw like 10 different pictures. So I just wanted to share. So in love and light, guys, have fun playing. You're guided. I see this in sessions all the time. Certain people I work with, they're more of the wordy type people writing. Some people I work with don't even know that they've got this in them. And I'm like, why aren't you using your artwork? What do you mean? I'm not an artist. And then all of a sudden they start painting. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm an artist. So ask, would this feel good? Should I try this? See what synchronicities line up to guide you in this direction. I never, again, to end on this note, thought I would be singing. I mean, never. And then even now, I just have to follow what I'm guided to do because I've never, I'll go to sing a song and I'm totally off key. But other times, it's the sound behind the sound. It isn't about any of that, is what I'm being guided to share. It's not about any of that. It's about letting it go and just going for it. Free your mind, right? And the rest will follow. I was so excited. Who is that? They were on the other day and I was like, oh yeah, awesome. I haven't heard that in forever. So anyways, but it's true. Let it all go. Who cares about what you look like, what you sound like? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to try to make sure I'm a little bit put together. But some days I'm like, here I go. I'm just going to let it fly. Post. Because I'm in my heart. So these languages are part of our innate abilities. Have fun playing, you guys. I hope that this helped. I hope me describing my process helps. And thank you so much for watching. In love and light. Namaste.